I do a lot of work with large firms, and basically when large firms are looking to get bought, it's absolutely crucial that they have quite highly commodified services and products. Now, small firms are obviously different, but I'm going to argue here that there are still benefits to thinking about what you do in terms of services or products. So number one, it improves your marketing. There's a more tangible product that has the opportunity to be branded or co-branded with your organization, and to be more visible. You know, if you think about any of the big products that came out of the big consultancies, sort of McKinsey's 7S's, or the Dogs and Stars matrix of Boston Consulting Group, the 4Ps of marketing, etc., etc. They're quite visible things that can be held in your head quite easily. Number two, consistency. If the more, generally speaking, the more knowledge that you take out of your head and put down, it makes the service more consistent and predictable, which is a benefit for you, but also for your client in terms of they know what they're getting. Now, there is a downside to that we'll come on to shortly. Putting the assets into the firm rather than you. This is especially important for any of you that want to grow the firm or potentially even sell the firm or license some of your products or services, where, you know, typically if a firm is being bought, when a buyer buys and all the information is in your head, you're just going to, you know, you're going to walk away from the firm and all the value is going to be gone. If you've taken some of that value out and put it in the products and services and methods, then the buyer has something tangible there that is separate to you. Operations, once you have sort of laid out the steps of your services, it enables work to be more easily delegated to people with perhaps less skill than you, because you've in effect codified your brain and given them instructions to follow, or outsourced or turned into software. Revenue, there's potential for licensing and franchising. I once had the good fortune to visit Eric Flamholtz, who is quite a well-known solo consultant actually in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. And it was really an excuse for a jolly, but I went out to see him, and he's made a fortune by developing his own products and services, commodifying them, productizing them, writing books about them, presenting them very well. He no longer does any consultancy himself. He makes his money from selling his products and services to other consultancies, and he's done very well out of it. So it is possible, even if you're a solo consultant. We'll talk more about that later. Margins, providing software, especially software products or automated products or services, have the potential to break the income and time link. And you might think, well, you know, that's simply not possible for a small firm. The wonderful thing with the cost of software and the cost of IT generally is that you can now develop a decent app for your phone for less than 10 grand. You can develop an online course very reasonably. You can develop software quite cheaply, and I've personally done all of these things, and yeah, I would recommend it if it's possible. So it has that capacity to de-link or break the link between your time, which is obviously precious and limited, and the revenue that you're getting in. Finally, sales. It can lead to a high margin wraparound service. So the idea is that you would lead with some form of service or product. It could be anything, but your consultancy work wraps around that. So it can be added onto it, or sometimes the service can be used as a lead for your consultancy work.
I would just add there, if I'm ready. Oh, I thought you said you finished. You had another one. Yeah. No, go on. You finish first, and then I'll chip in.
Finally, pricing. I'm a big fan of project or sort of fixed pricing. It does lend itself to different forms of pricing that, again, you know, disassociate it with your time, or can disassociate it with your time. But it's certainly a different pricing model to the time and materials model that consultancies usually pursue. Martin.
I was just going to add that this whole concept of what's on this slide is about the evolution from being a consultant to a business person. Yeah, and I don't think any of this should be seen as optional. I think this should be seen as essential, and you should always be trying to find ways to leverage this opportunity. Now, you may not always have a product in your consultancy forever, but you should always be looking for that opportunity, because this is how you scale a business. Even if it's, as you mentioned, just as a solopreneur, you still want to scale it to give yourself enough time to live a life outside of your business. So I think this is a hugely important slide that people should always come back to, just to remind themselves of the different opportunities and the benefits.
Great.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've done a few different things in this area. I guess very often I offer the software or the course or the app, whatever, as an added value to the consultancy. So very often I'll be doing a piece of work or bidding for a piece of work, and then I will say, as well as what I've said here, you'll also get this online program, or this copies of the book, or training in this method or whatever. And it allows you to add value to your proposals, I guess. Okay, right, let's move on. Okay, so there are downsides. I've spoken to a couple of people who have very successfully productized what they do and then got utterly bored of it because they felt there was less creative problem solving, and their approach was fairly standardized. Now, I think there's always opportunities for creating more, processes or products, but that was one downside that's been mentioned. It can make the client feel less unique if it's managed badly. I think if it's managed well, I think you can emphasize the value that you're providing with clients. But there was a documentary, I think it was called "Who's Wasting Britain's Billions," a year or two ago, and they had this very indignant economist, I think he was, sort of complaining about consultancies boilerplating their reports and charging a lot of money for them. And my view is well, actually, with that problem, a boilerplated report was exactly what you wanted. It was a standard template that allowed the clients, which was local councils, to compare their performance and things. So having something boilerplated was pretty much what you wanted. So yeah, but obviously that needs to be managed. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, I have interviewed some consultancies who do highly unique, bespoke work, and their unique selling point is around their creativity and innovation. I would argue that they still have templates and processes, but very often the client doesn't see them. It's kept in the back office, or it's used as a resource on aid thinking, or that you kind of get a mix and match, what the French would call a bricoleur approach to creativity, where you're sort of using different tools to solve the problem in hand.